I'm an author, I'm an artist, I'm an analyzer. Find all my work at mjmunoz.com. I'm talking about Captain Hook, other things than Captain Hook in Peter Pan Chapter 14. This is my uh, quick review of it, and here we go. So I find it really interesting that the name of Hook's ship is given in the book as Jolly Roger. I'm familiar with Jolly Roger as being the flag of the pirates with the skull and crossbones, the black flag. So I looked into that a little bit to find out a little bit about it, and I'll get back to that in a minute. I've also been intrigued with Hook's history and who he is. I kind of assumed that maybe he was Jim Hawkins from Treasure Island. However, the because the book talks about him interacting with Barbecue, who is Long John Silver from Treasure Island, but it also talks about him interacting with Blackbeard. And this book was published in 1904. I don't know when the book is supposed to take place. It might be before 1904, but still, it talks about these men as if they're real, or at least they're real for Hook, and I find that to be pretty interesting. Um, so I've kind of speculated about who Hook is, and again, I thought he was Jim Hawkins, um, and I think maybe now he's not Jim Hawkins because he seems like he's more of a little bit more of a modern figure, or a little bit more of a contemporary figure um, for who for who. He seems like he's a little bit more of a contemporary figure, and I think that that's probably accurate. So I looked up Blackbeard the pirate as well to kind of talk about that, and then I want to talk about actually I'm going to go back to that real quick. So Jolly Roger, that name specifically is the name of the skull and crossbones. It's from the 19th century. It seems to be linked to Barbary pirates, and that's definitely um, well, it looks like it's also from the 18th century, maybe. Hmm. Anyway, it's also called the Death's Head flag. But yeah, the Jolly Roger is supposed to be that flag with the skull and crossbones on it. But Hook calls his ship that, and I'm not 100% sure why. I tried to look it up, and I couldn't really find a good. I couldn't really find a good answer as to why. So it just kind of leads us to speculate what was going on with that. Apparently, it comes from the French Joli Rouge, which means jolly red or pretty red. I think it means a beautiful red. I think it means like very red, but I don't know for sure. And apparently, it was because the online speculation I saw was because either pirate ships were red back at the time, or because they would become when pirates would board your ship, it would become pretty red with all the blood that they would shed. So I'm not exactly sure if that's the case or not, but I did find it very interesting that Jolly Roger is Captain Hook's ship's name, and I just thought that was kind of compelling. Hook seems to be very much the iconic image of a pirate, and I almost wondered if it was possible that Jolly Roger came from him, but no, it's from before, so that's good to know. Um, and then Hook's mysterious past, it seems to hint that he's a real world person, but then again, it talks about him having dealt with Blackbeard the pirate, who kids would have heard of, but he lived in the 18th century, so 1717. I'm seeing. Let me just read a little bit about Blackbeard the pirate because, where does it put Hook in context? It says by the fall of 1717, Blackbeard was operating off Delaware and Chesapeake Bays in conjunction with two other pirates, Benjamin Hornigold and Steed Bonnet. Or Stead Bonnet, I don't know. In 1718, Blackbeard sailed the Queen Anne's Revenge to the Bay of Honduras. On November 22nd, 1718, Blackbeard was killed in a battle off Ocracoke Island, North Carolina, by a British naval expedition personally funded by Virginia Governor Alexander Spotswood. Uh, these dates indicate that Blackbeard was active as a pirate from at least 1717 until his death in 1718. Wow, 1 year, and he has that much of a reputation. Apparently, his name was originally Edward Teach, and I don't know where the name Blackbeard came from. So that's really interesting. I had no idea that this guy had such a short-lived time as a pirate. I would have thought it would have been. I thought it would have been longer. I thought it would have been older too. To hear that he was operating 17. Let's see. Yeah, those dates. 1776 is when the America was created. So he was harassing the British colonies. It looks like, which is kind of interesting. But the book, is written and published in 1904. Could have been from somewhere near that time. Let's say the book supposedly took place in 1900. That's still a long ways away, and it's surprising that Blackbeard would have been that old. But then again, how old is Peter Pan? How old is Captain Hook? How long have they been there? It's kind of unknown, and I find that to be pretty interesting. The connections to the public school that Hook went to then, and like what his true identity is kind of strange, and I don't know what to do with that, other than think that he's all the stuff about his true identity is just kind of mystique that Barry threw in there, and that's about it. That's about it. It's interesting how cruel he is when the boys refuse to join with him. He's going to make them walk the plank, and he has Smee tie Wendy to the mast to watch all her children die, and he was about to turn her face towards the plank so that she could watch them walk the plank. She can watch all her children die when the tick-tocking of the croc scared him off, and then he went and hid and ran away. That's how the chapter ends. And then we learn that it's actually not the crocodile, it's somebody else. But it's interesting because she speaks on behalf of all their mothers, and she says that she hopes that her sons or that these boys would die like English gentlemen. And the defiance and the pride of a mother that's on display through Wendy is really interesting, and it's a really fun thing. And it goes back to something I've talked about earlier, that there's this interesting spectrum of humanity shown. There's these different sides of men and women, of the masculine and the feminine, of mothers and sons, that are shown in this book. And it's really interesting because, yeah, you would think that, oh no, she's a mother, she's a girl, she'd be scared of this, but instead she does command them to die like English gentlemen, which means like without whimpering, without fear, just go silently and die, because it's better to die with your pride than it is to die uh, whimpering, or even to serve somebody and be bad, be a dishonorable person. And that's like a really powerful statement. And this book's silly and it's absurd, but then it has these things in it that are really interesting and really true, and really touch on things that are true in life and from life. And I find that fascinating. Anyway, that's it. Check out the backlog of the rest of the chapter by chapter discussions I've had of Peter Pan so far. We are rapidly nearing the end of this book, and I'm very excited to talk about it as a whole. And I encourage you to check out my website, MJ Munoz, where you can find all my other book talks, all of my other discussions that I've been doing of this and other books, as well as the Fortress Fiction podcast, where I have this is a kind of a new thing where I'm talking about a book chapter by chapter. Previously, I was talking about a book as a whole, and I've done 10 or 11 other books before Peter Pan, and Peter Pan struck me as something that deserved to be talked about in a bigger way, and it's something I'd like to do in the future. So go ahead and check that out. I'm producing or releasing these about 5 days a week is the goal. So we can get through a book pretty quickly, but at a reasonable pace, and I have some room to breathe as well. So anyway, check that out. I would appreciate it, and look out for me to announce my own books about magical bugs battling monsters. That'll be released soonish, and that I'm working on, and I'll have announcements about that over on my site. And hopefully you can also sign up for a newsletter to check out all my stuff. I plan to do a newsletter release once a week to catch you up on everything that I've been publishing on the website, everything I've been writing myself, even if it's not quite yet published. So until next time, folks, take care and be well and keep reading. I hope you enjoyed that. Go to mjmunoz.com to leave any questions, comments, or other feedback you might have. There you can find all of my analysis, art, and fiction. I cover books, tokusatsu, comic books, anime, and more. Look around. You're sure to find something else that you'll enjoy as well. This has been a Story Over Everything production.